I gotta go where I can see it.
All right, well, while you're doing that, I'll call where are we, February 11th, Permanent Building Committee and Recal Building Committee meeting to order. I'll take a roll call. Attendance vote, start things off. John Coote.
Yes.
Mark Doxer.
Yes.
Ari Greenberg. I don't think Ari's here yet or here tonight. Kirk McCormick.
Here.
Mike Mazzaro. Here. Ron Powell.
Here.
Greg Stepler.
Here.
Nancy Toomey.
Here.
Pat Tompkins here. I think I got everyone there. So just jumping over to the agenda, I'll just kind of quickly run through the agenda. Obviously, big topic tonight is the general bids have come in as well as the filed sub bids. So we have some important votes to make. We're gonna try and get to that pretty quickly. There's a note on public comments. Along those lines, probably gonna have a pretty good discussion about the bids and the alternates. And I generally run, I'll say, a freewheeling committee, but tonight I'm gonna limit public comments to the public comment section of the meeting to help us facilitate our discussion. We're gonna review the meeting minutes, go over project schedule and budget. And then obviously item 6, the big item tonight, the project updates, where we'll review the filed sub trades, the general bid, the filed sub trade bid results, the general bid results. A note about one trade that we're rebidding, and we're gonna have 3 motions that we really need to take in order. We're gonna have a motion on the first alternate. Then we're gonna have a motion on whether or not we accept the second alternate. And then we'll have a motion to approve the general contractor bid. We get to that point, we talk about a little more, but we kind of need to do those in that order. And if we don't take alternate 1, we cannot take alternate 2. They need to be taken in order. As other project updates, we have some of the other procurement items we have going on, as well as an update from the designer. I don't know if there's any owner updates. Item 7. We'll talk about the owner contractor agreement that, assuming all the votes go as planned, we'll have to issue an agreement to the contractor. And we'll get through if there's any previous business follow-up or new business, any informational project meetings. We'll go over the invoices. We have an item in there for business not reasonably anticipated, and we'll talk about the next meeting date. So that's our agenda for tonight. And with that, I will open it up to public comment. Not seeing any in the room. Is there any online? Jenna? Okay, so moving on to item 3, the next item, the meeting minutes from the past meeting. If everyone wants to take a moment, if you haven't had a chance already to review those. If everyone has, I'll entertain a motion to accept them.
Motion to accept the January 7th, 2026 on voting and send for active meeting.
Second. Any further discussion? We'll go to the vote. John Coote.
Yes.
Mark Doxer.
Yes.
Kirk McCormick.
Yes.
Ron Powell.
Yes.
Greg Stepler.
Yes.
Nancy Toomey.
Yes.
And Pat Tompkins, yes. Motion passes. That'll turn it over to Peter to review schedule, budget, and our project updates.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good to be back. I won't go too deep into the schedule of the budget. There's really not much that has changed since we last spoke, but I do have the schedule on the screen. We're pretty much on the same queue as we somewhat anticipated as far as the bid times. So I've highlighted the screens. We have received the bids. And tonight we're going to talk about the bids and talk about accepting what the chairman mentioned earlier. So here we are on the 11th of February. We're looking to execute the contract by the end of the month, as shown here. And potentially down here on row 47, we were looking to potentially issue a notice to proceed to the awarded contractor the first week of March. That is still a goal. It might slip a couple of days here and there, but it shouldn't slip more than, say, 7 to 8 days from that point. So again, we're still pretty much on track to adhere to those timelines. I won't go any further because I know time is somewhat of the essence this evening, but any special questions on the schedule? If there are, we can always come back to it. I will quickly scan and go right to the next item, which is the project budget. Again, you're all familiar with the format of the budget. Everything still remains on track as listed from the previous presentation. The budget remains the same, with the exception of I have not added in the contractor's bid numbers yet. I've only entered in the contracts that have been executed. The budget that you see on the screen, and I'll forward it to you later tomorrow, full budget, but this just incorporates the invoices that are going to be presented tonight. For example, under engineering, structural engineering peer review, we have a LIM consulting invoice of $1,050. So that's been added to the budget, as you see right here on row 159. That's going to be approved tonight, or considered to be approved tonight, I should say. But other than that, the budget remains as initially prepared and presented, and these are some of the bottom line numbers here. So out of the 27.9, 2.7 million has been committed. 6% has been invoiced, 4% remains out of the 10% that's been committed. I'll pause and I'll go to the next item if we so choose, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
Okay, we're gonna move down to the next item on the agenda, which is probably a lengthy discussion, which is some updates. Speaking about the update on the contractor's bid. So several bullets here on item 6A. Overall, I'm going to first talk about the filed sub-bid trades. The filed sub-bid trades have come in, as you may be remembered. So where was that? I had a sheet. Here they are. So I'll zoom in a little bit here. Here are the various trades of the filed sub-bid categories, from masonry, metals, waterproofing and damp proofing. These are all the trades. I can zoom in on anything you'd like to see. This is our in-house tabulation spreadsheet that we use to list out all the bidders that submitted bids. We list out their bid price. We list out any variances from the estimate. We do a reference check on all the compliances that are supposed to be accompanied with the bid, such as the affidavits, the update statements, and you can see things here, the bid bonds and so on, and is the bid signed. All the filed sub bids that have been submitted are in full compliance with the bid submission requirements. So that's a good sign. There's no red flags in that arena. So we do have all these listed filed sub bid trades listed. So this is a master listing of all the trades that came in for the various trade categories. I will jump over to another sheet that we have here. I'll move on. Let me go back to my agenda for a second, make sure I'm in order. So now we'll go to the general contractors trade bid results.
Peter, before you go there.
Yes, sir.
Go back to the subcontract just for a second. Can you explain the 3 columns on that last one?
Let me go back. Let me find which one.
Dollar value columns?
Yes. So there's the trade budget, apparent low bid, variance, I can figure out. So trade budget is our estimate and the apparent low bid is of what we receive. So
Correct.
So some of these are, some of these are higher, lower, some of them are dramatically different,
Yes.
but in total, we came in, if you go down to the bottom one, it's right there.
Was about 6 million under.
Sorry, 200,000.
I'm sorry, 205,000 under. I'm sorry, wrong column. Right. But that's actually a little different than when this sheet was first put together. I have another one. Let me go to a different one if you don't mind.
Okay, so just a quick, sorry.
Oh,
before
go ahead.
Just on HVAC, just as an example. So it's right there, go up one. the division 23, 230,000, whatever it is there. You were right at it. Okay, so we estimated 1,394,000. Sorry, confusing.
We met,
We 1,914,000, they came in at 1,394,000, so it's favorable 520.
Right.
That particular one. Got it.
correct,
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
No problem. So with respect to the general contractor's bids, here is a summary sheet. Well, actually, let me do something different just to share with you what we've done. In similar manner, we have a general contractor's bid tabulation sheet, again, to confirm that they've submitted all the bid requirements in compliance with the submission requirements, excuse me, and they have. So all the general contractors' bids came in, they were fully compliant with the requirements of the documents that were necessary from, was the bid signed, is there an affidavit, et cetera, et cetera. I'll go to another sheet here. I'm sorry to share a lot of numbers, but this is how we kind of break it down. We calculate, put it all together, then we summarize it. So on the general contractor's bids, which is the general contractor who's carrying the project. Here is a summary sheet. There were 6 general contractors that bid, as you can see at the top row here. J&J, Castagna, M. O'Connor, DeLulis, GVW, Boston Building. Row 3 was the construction budget that we have calculated in our budget. Row 4 is the bid price from the various contractors with respect to the bid price itself. So as you can see right here, first column, J&J, who is the lowest bidder at this time, submitted a bid of 18.9. He's short from the budget, 3 million plus, and so on. As you can see, as you go across row 5, the difference. The red line in parentheses, meaning the savings, so to speak. The next thing I did was just to share as in comparison one to the next. What's the cost difference from the low bidder? The second bidder was $90,000 higher. Third bidder was $878,000 higher. And then the percentage from the lowest bid price. That's just kind of a reference so you can have some numbers to look at if you like that. So then we move on to the next area. We have a base bid. Now we have 2 alternates on the project, as the chairman mentioned this morning. Alternate number 1 is the Range Road Extension. Again, J&J, I carry his bid number down. I add in his bid price of Range Road Extension, $180,000. The next contractor was $167,200 and so on. Then we add up the totals. And then we add on the other system, which is the alternate number 2, the photovoltaic system. Again, the bid price of $270,000 for J&J, $294,800 for the number 2 bidder, Castagna, and then so on, 3, 4, and 5, 6 bidders. So then I turn around and I bring the budget down here to row 23, 21 million is what we have in our budget. The base bid plus alternates 1 and number 2 combined is a total of 19,357,000 from J&J. Against our budget, there's a $2.5 million and some change savings in reference to the budget, or 11.81% difference savings, and so on with the balance of the bidders. So those are the numbers kind of in a summary sheet, just to give you some balance from what we've estimated, what we have in our budget, and then one bidder to the next with the various line items, base bid, alternate 1, alternate 2. So I hope that was helpful. I have another sheet here, which I will share. And this is the J&J price, who they carried with their filed sub-bidders. As you can see, from J&J, Castagna, M. O'Connor, and DeLulis and Boston Building, they all carried the same filed sub-bid contractors who were the low bidders that submitted their bids 2 weeks earlier. The one general contractor, GVW, they do self-perform some of the filed sub-bid trades in-house. So as you can see, under masonry, GVW carried themselves as a mason, while everybody else carried Armello, and so on, as you can see. So this was just kind of a summary of that calculation of who did what And again, here's the numbers on the base bids. And then the next sheet was the unit pricing. We have unit pricing that was also included in their bid forms. Because in speaking with the design team and some of the experiences we've all shared on the project, there will be unknown costs that may have to be added to the project, such as ledge, as you can see here on row 5 and 6. If we happen to run into rock ledge below the surface that we're not aware of, what is the cost to remove it? And these are the unit costs that each of the contractors submitted for the various unit prices that we think will be potentially added to the project throughout the life of it. And you can see the bottom 7 through 12, if we have to add an exit sign, if we have to add a horn strobe for the electrical, we have 2 costs. What's the cost to do it during rough-in? Because there's 2 phases. We catch it, or it's known in time, or after during the finish stage of the project, and so on with the tell data and so on. So these are numbers that we just want to have in our back pocket should we have to ask the contractor to do 1 or 2 of these extra things that may or may not have to happen. So that's kind of a quick, fast summary of all the information that came in on the bid tabulations. We did also, from our office, we've spoken with the design team, BH+A. We've talked through all these numbers and some of the other information. We've reviewed the DCAM files for the 3 low general contractor bidders. They're all in compliance. Their DCAM update statements are in place. We've looked at their evaluations from other projects that they've submitted, and they all have scores in the high 90s. So they're all in full compliance with that, and there's no red flags in that area as well. They all seem to have the capacity to complete the work. They're not, their annualized aggregate work is not in excess of their aggregate limit. For example, J&J has an aggregate limit of work of $424 million and some change. They have a single project limit of 93 million and some change. Their current annualized aggregate limit right now is 186 million. We throw in this project, which is, call it 20 million is a quick number. Over a 2-year period, add 10 million to that, that puts them at 196 million annualized over as an aggregate, and they have an aggregate of 424 million. So there's capacity there for them to do the work. And in other words, they're not up against their limit from a bonding capacity as well. One of the other quick ones, I'll go back to this sheet here if you don't mind. One thing we'll be doing, the elevators. I'm going to highlight this row right here, row 11. We did ask the contractors to carry an allowance. When the file sub-bid trades came in 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, we only received 1 bid from an elevator contractor. It was about $75,000 greater than what we anticipated it to be. So we took the option of rebidding the work. We put it back out to bid. The bids are expected next Thursday, the 19th at 2 p.m. Hopefully we get some good competitive bids. Whatever the bids come in at, we'll have to give a change order to the awarded general contractor to make up the difference. Either it's less or more. So we carried the allowance of 153,450. That was our estimated cost during the estimating period of the project. So that's something that's going to come up when we get an update.
What happens if you don't get elevated bids?
We have 1 bid. We have one bid that did come in at 230,000. We'll probably have to use that number. But I'm going to double check.
Assuming they bid again.
Yeah, assuming, right. I'll have to double check with the IG's office, yeah. But
You can negotiate with them too.
uh,
I know that they're not gonna want to.
they're not gonna- so, what did I miss? Let me see. Any questions? I know I talked fast and I threw a lot of numbers on the screen. Let me go back. This is probably right here. Here's the telltale sign in short order. Whoops. me undo that. This is the tab that tells you where all the numbers land. All three, 1, 2, and 3 bidders, they're very competitive numbers, as you can see the differences. They're all in full compliance. They've all have similar experience. And right now, J&J is certainly the lowest. They are responsible and they are eligible. And those are some of the criterias that we all have to adhere to, as are the other contractors, but without saying anything more, it appears to me that J&J would be the recommended contractor for the project based on all the information that they've submitted. They've been pre-qualified and they comply with all the requirements.
I concur.
So I'll stop for a minute, Mr. Chairman. Any questions or discussions?
Mark?
Thanks, Peter. This is great. A couple of questions. First, when we have the construction budget line, 21,947, I'm trying to make that correspond to the project budget. So the 21,947 and the full budget includes estimated construction costs, general conditions, general requirements, bonds and insurance, escalation and profit. So are all of those part of this?
Yes, so let me, thank you for that. It's a good, yes, so you're looking at a different number. Let me zoom in on the actual budget that I have on the.
That's the one.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
So a little play on numbers, just to, not to be coy or anything, but let me just do something. So this number here is what we have, this 21,947,967 is actually in the budget of itself that we presented to town meeting. Over on this sheet, and I probably should not have used the word construction budget. This number here is a little different. That was a combination of what we used when we estimated as well, then we also put it in the budget. So that is the construction budget in the project. And yes, it does cover all these things in here that we've listed. So the budget or the bid price that J&J provided includes all that information. Yes, it's all in it.
Okay, and the bonding, was that something we were discussing? Who was gonna do that? Or was that owner's insurance?
The owner's insurance,
Okay,
so
great.
that's a builder's risk insurance. The bond cost for the project is built into the contractor's price.
Got it.
The bid bond and the performance and payment bond.
Okay, so if you go back to the other one, just for a second, back to the budget form. So the
And
contingencies that we've established
Whoops.
are above and beyond. They kind of should keep going. That's where we're gonna find the
Yeah,
contingencies, right?
So the construction owner's contingency.
Yeah.
This $1,047,000 is the building committee, this committee's money to use at their discretion.
Got it.
And the difference over here, 2.5. You can add it,
With both.
both combined.
Got it.
So
To make sure I'm understanding the process, when we were doing the estimating and putting together the final construction drawings, we had a series of other contingencies which we continued to reduce as we further more clearly specified exactly what was to happen.
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
so at this point, the contingency that would be left would be that 1,097 identified in any difference we see here,
Correct.
where red is good.
Right, so let's call it 2.5 and 1.1. 3.6 is the overall owner's contingency.
Got it. Okay, and one other question, on the sheet for the things that we haven't yet estimated, and we have the unit costs, estimated unit costs from each of the bidders. So for fill removal and things like that,
Right here.
and I think that one
Yes.
right there, right? So there's some. How do we work with this sheet? Right, so I look at it and I say, wow, there's some real differences between the first 3 bidders in terms of what's going on here. How do we estimate what might happen? I don't know what might happen. How do we evaluate this sheet? Is it just helpful to know, or is there something we can do with it?
Not much we can do with, because that's the bid price for that unit to do that particular line item of work.
Right.
We keep our fingers crossed if we don't run into ledge, hopefully, and we don't have to spend it.
There's no ledge in this town, not to worry.
So to speak. So, is there room for some negotiation? I don't think there's any room for negotiation here. We could talk about it, but not really, no. No, these are the unit prices that they submitted.
Right, and is it, so for example, the low bid right now has typically much higher unit costs, unit prices here. And the second bid is what, $90,000 different from the first bid?
Um,
On a
where'd it go? I'm sorry,
$1 billion total.
90,000 difference on the
90,000
base bid,
difference
on
on
the
$20
base
million.
bid.
So we would, to folks in the room, how do we deal with that, or is that just kind of a? Oh. What it is?
I'm not the Mass General Law expert, but I don't know that we can, because to do that, we'd have to apply, we'd have to apply a fictional guess
Right.
of a quantity to some of those unit prices. And that would be somewhat arbitrary to do.
It would be a protest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so this is just,
These are just.
FYI at this point.
It's informational for us to use if we need it.
got it, and hope and a prayer.
One thing, it does jump out that their unit prices are a little higher. Typically, the language in those specifications that those unit prices can be used at the owner's discretion. There are other methods of calculating changes. If you run into a situation like this, unit pricing makes it easier, because we can determine the quantity of something, apply an agreed upon unit price. And it's pretty straightforward. As an alternative, we could go down a different route if we knew we had a significant amount of one of these unit prices. One of the different methods of a change order to the contractor, which would be to solicit a lump sum from them, or to do it on a time and material basis. But, those can get risky, and you might wind up spending more than the unit price. But we do have, we're not
Different means.
100% obligated to those unit prices. And like Peter said, we kind of cross our fingers and hope there's not a lot of it.
Okay.
The flip side is if there was a deduct, if we removed something that could be quantified in those items, there would be a credit in that amount as well. I don't think there's any ledge in the base price, so that wouldn't happen, the
Yeah.
trench or the open ledge, but that's good observation.
Thank you. Appreciate the answers.
Sure. There's a lot of numbers here, there's a lot of puzzle pieces to put together, but we think we've got it all collected. And we feel it's a sound bid, it's a sound design, and we have some good competitive pricing. And I think we're kind of ready to talk it through and make a decision.
Peter, remind me, what was our estimate for the photo lane?
I wrote that down, 280. 280,600. Yeah.
Because we did have a vote not to have it at 280, right?
I think the
Not
vote,
not to include it as.
yes, not to include it as a base
We
project.
said at 280 it wasn't worth it.
Put it as an
That's the sentiment of some committee members, but I don't think that was actually the language of the vote.
No, I think we did vote not to, we voted it as an alternate. Voted not to put it in the base bill.
Yes.
Right, the sentiment was that at 280, its payback period was more than we thought was reasonable.
Yeah.
That's my government.
And we've, in anticipation of the discussion, the design team has sort of re-looked at the whole analysis. And when we get to that, we'll talk about it. And, I hope it's okay, but I asked them to share their analysis along the way with Greg and Ari heading into tonight's meeting. Since they know more, I felt like they know more about this than anyone else on the committee, to kind of give them just a jump on how they were analyzing the numbers and what the payback period is.
And we also had identified a grant that would further reduce the cost through RMLD.
Yep.
So it doesn't impact the bid cost, but it does impact our cost.
This is just a quick sheet, also not to jump off track, on the elevator, we did reach out. We did work with the town's procurement office. This is on the street, it's been publicly bid again. So good help there from the procurement office. And we've also reached out, our office has reached out to these, 10 firms, actually, number 2 firm, has already submitted a bid already, as you can see. So we have several elevator firms that have expressed interest, so we're hoping by next Thursday, we get some good numbers to help offset what we think is a difference. So I'd share this list so you know what's going on. Oops. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll just go back to this agenda, if that's true. Anything else? I think we're down to, let me uncheck this out. We're down to these 3 motions, if you will, I believe. Right here. Right here. And right here.
So, just as I stated before, we need to take the alternates in order. When I originally talked to Peter, and the bids are very close, although as you run through the alternates, the low bidder doesn't change. But in anticipation of it potentially changing is why I felt like the general contractor vote needs to be last. But it doesn't change the low general contractor. Just sort of talking aloud about the bids across the filed sub bids and the general contractor, we definitely received a lot of interest, a lot of competitive bids. And it does, the low 2 bids being right on top of each other, is a testament to the fact that it's a good bid. And then the next 2 bidders are a little ways off, but 4 to 6% is not too far off. Then you've got 2 bidders that, one might surmise that they kind of mailed it in a little bit. 6 general contractors on a project this size, I think is more than you might have saw two years ago, you might see on another project. So I think overall, and obviously the numbers being under budget, we're obviously in a great position. The alternate pricing from the individual general contractors doesn't vary much. And ironically, the low general bidder is kind of right about in the middle, on the Range Road extension, and is the lowest of the bidders on the photovoltaic, although all those bids are pretty tight. Which the lion's share of that cost, they're all carrying the same electrical cost. So that's kind of the summary on the bids, and I don't know if someone wants to make a motion or not to accept the first alternate. And just to start, I think we're under budget, so we have the ability to make the decisions on these alternates. I think we should make the decisions on whether we think it's appropriate for the project and appropriate for the town, and it's a good value for the town, not necessarily just take all the alternates because we're below budget. As far as the extension of Range Road, I think it's something that between this and the pickleball project, it's something that really needs to happen. And I think it really needs to happen under this contract. I don't think because under this contract is the balance of the road. So, I certainly support that. And I think all the bids are pretty tight on that from the different general contractors, which kind of, in my mind, tells us we're getting an appropriate value. But I don't know if anyone wants to take a crack at a motion.
Motion to approve alternate number 1, the extension of Range Road.
Second.
Does anyone, any discussion on that?
Yeah, Pat, I was going to add, you mentioned that, inevitably there'll be a pickleball courts further down Range Road from the center. But I think one of the other benefits of that extension also included connecting to the separate entrance to the parking lot behind the skating rink. and by default creating, a more reasonable path for overflow parking in the event that the center lot is full. So I think there's another value add there.
I agree. Thank you. Ron?
Yeah, I just want to better understand where the funding for this alternate is coming from. So it's not part of the base budget.
I think the funding, I'll first say that I would leave that to town staff, in particular, Sharon, to confirm. And, but I would think that that funding would come from the recal budget,
Project.
from the project budget, since it's done under the project.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
with your permission, just to elaborate through you to Mr. Powell. Part of it's done as an alternate in case the purpose is the recal building, right? That there is a road there, purpose is the recal building. So that's why this was an alternate, so that the building itself and then parking lot, all that could come in, the prices that needed to come in, and then the road is important. And because of the recal project, we have to have the road, so that's why it's an alternate, but it's all part of the same project budget.
Did anyone else have any questions? Did you say, does someone have their hand up?
Karen Gately, her, because we get back.
Okay. I don't know if Karen was here when I said I was only taking public comment during public comment, but Karen, if you have a comment on the alternates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was just a question because I couldn't quite hear on the audio. I was just following along, and you said certain contractors dialed it in. I don't have any concerns with these alternates. But when you made the comment of somebody dialing it in, could you just clarify what you were talking about?
Yeah, I was making a reference to the two highest bidders out of the six. And I guess the best way to describe it is my guess, and I would just be surmising, that they just weren't as aggressive. They weren't as interested as the other bidders, which is why their number was different than the low two bidders.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's all.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, is any further discussion on the motion on the table, on the floor, floor, whatever it is? All right. We'll go to a vote. Bear with me 1 second here. I have to go to my list these days. I keep forgetting who I already asked. So go to the vote. John Coop,
Yes.
Mark Doxer,
Yes.
Kirk McCormick,
Yes.
Ron Powell,
Yes.
Greg Stepler,
Yes.
Nancy Toomey,
Yes.
Pat Tompkins, yes. Motion passes. So moving to the second alternate, the photovoltaic system. As John mentioned, there was we included as an alternate because we want to know the value and we want to know what the return would be. And I think what would probably be best is if Dan could walk us through, Dan has done sort of a cost benefit or payback analysis on it. And if Dan could walk us through that, unless Peter, I don't know who's better to do that and be able to share their screen possibly.
Sure. I think Dan, BH plus A has a better narrative than I do, for sure.
You might.
I'll stop sharing.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And what I did here is a sort of life cycle cost analysis over 20 years on a PV system. The typical life cycle cost, the criteria we took in is the initial cost, capital replacement cost. Although with a PV system, you don't replace the entire system, you do need to replace the inverters, in this case, the batteries. There's a residual value at the end of 20 years. After that, we then take into consideration the energy cost that we confirm was the RMLD, and then escalate as energy gets more expensive, escalate out over 20 years. That then becomes the savings. And then we confirm with the town in terms of financing charges that are used to finance this project, and that becomes sort of the also taken into consideration. And finally, maintenance cost that every year, cleaning, repair the PV systems is sort of estimated, and these are sort of best practice. And so when you take all of this into consideration, and part of this is because the RMLD rate for the recal project is at 17 cents per kilowatt hour. This is for 100 kilowatt system that we put into our alternate 2 that's currently over the roof of the gym. And so when that's all taken into consideration, the initial cost I've taken 270,000, which is from the low bidder of the cost that you've been presented tonight. And so when this all is taken into consideration, the payback for the current system is about 23 years at break even, meaning at year 23, you would sort of make back this money at the investment that you made. Now, this is purely based on financial analysis. I've also taken the liberty to say what needs to happen if you need to have a payback in 10 years. And again, taking all the sort of same criteria, the only thing that changed here is that the energy escalation, rather than at 1.5%, which is pretty conservative, as you know, the New England Northeast region energy prices have been rising very quickly. And so in order to get a payback in 10 years, the energy cost will have to be double, in the sense that instead of 17 cents on year 1, you have 34 cents at year 1 for kilowatt hour, and a 3% escalation. That would take you to a 10-year payback for the $270,000 investment on the PV system. So, and to give you a reference, Eversource sort of rate outside of local municipalities are hovering around 25, 27 cents per kilowatt hour. And that's the typical sort of standard rates that we are seeing with other projects. So to summarize, I think RMLD's low rates in some ways penalizes the payment, or rather the return on investment. However, I think one need to look past the life cycle cost and really see the sort of the benefit of PV, both in terms of whether it's health, whether it's lower embodied carbon and greening the building and so on. I think there are sort of fringe benefits that are not necessarily captured purely from the financial perspective.
Does anyone have any questions? Dan? Fun, Dan. Mark?
So Dan, there was a discussion that was had with RMLD about a grant. How does that factor in here?
So I have not taken the RMLD grant into this consideration because I have not had any sort of confirmation from RMLD about the grant dollar amount. But if there is a grant dollar amount, that will obviously sort of reduce the initial cost, and then sort of following through. To sort of give you a sense, it's around $16,000, $17,000 per year of savings, if you will. So, and so, for example, if the RML grant comes in at around $30,000, then that would take the payback to, in the first case scenario, to around 20 years or so.
And was that grant possibly $60,000?
That's what I remember. It was the same program that the schools are utilizing.
So one of the problems we do run into is like analyzing something with a hope of a grant later. But I guess for purposes of discussion and just to, calculate it out in your head, if we were to get that $60,000 and take it off that analysis, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, that might push a 23-year payback to 17 years?
It would pay back to around 20 years.
For 60,000?
Yeah, I think so. I'll have to kind of run some, detailed numbers, but looks like around actually, sorry, it looks like it's around 18 years.
Better than that.
I was moving towards 18.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
basically taking 60 grand off capital cost.
In all of this, I don't wanna, don't take this the wrong way, Dan. I think it's an excellent analysis. All of it is a little bit of voodoo math because we have no idea what escalation is gonna be. We have no idea what's gonna happen. So you're starting to get a flavor for, and you don't know what, if any grants you will get. But you're starting to get a flavor, in my mind anyway. I don't wanna put anything in anyone's head, but you're kind of hovering around 20 years. You might get a little under that, right? If you factor in and you say it's 50-50, we get a $60,000 grant, then you call it a $30,000 grant for purposes of trying to create a financial model, which if 60,000 moves it from 23 to 17 or 18 years, then maybe you're staring at a 20-year return. And I think that's, for me, that's a good place to make a decision from based on this, which has a lot of variables.
And I will say that the model that we're using is somewhat conservative at 1.5% escalation of energy cost. And from sort of the last 15, 20 years, New England region energy escalation has been rising pretty quickly. So, but you're correct. The voodoo math is absolutely right on. A lot of these are all projections.
But you have to use something, and you guys do a great job of taking your best estimate of what those costs and escalations will be.
You should also remember that the building is completely ready in the base bit.
Yep.
So as if we want to add it later, if dramatically things go one way or the other, this reduces sort of amount of costs, increase or electricity prices, the building can support it later.
Yep, that's true. Does anyone else have any thoughts or comments? Mark? Scott?
If I could close on it. So a couple of things. One, RMLD website has this commercial solar rebate. It's set at $600 per kilowatt, up to $60,000. So that is what we were referring to. So 100. That happens to be $60,000. To Dan's point, I think there's a lot of benefit to doing this. I think doing it now has a lot of benefit. We could do it later and it will cost more when we do it later.
Well, we would only do it if it didn't.
So
We would probably only do it later if it didn't cost.
that's asking a lot, isn't it?
Or if electricity started costing a lot.
The cost of EV systems would be coming down and down and down.
Made in the US possibly. I think that the benefits of this are more than just the energy costs. I do think it's interesting. I'm not sure why you're using 1.5% escalation, Dan, if that's not a realistic number. Sounds like it's really low as you identified. I'm not sure why that's there. Anyway, this is not going to come back and say you're going to save, hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're not in that scenario at all. But in terms of what the building is meant to do, in terms of learning experience that can be there, in terms of carbon reduction, in terms of a lot of different things, I think it's got a lot of benefits to offer to the town. And we put it as an alternate purposefully because we were concerned about kind of where it would fit. And the reason again that it was an alternate was it was the building first. And we need to make sure that we could afford the building. These bids came in very favorably, which is great. And I think that the opportunity is here to do it. I always worry that kind of kicking the can down the road usually results in not much happening. So if it's something that we think makes sense, I would strongly suggest we do it. I'm very much in support of it.
Okay, thank you.
Greg has his hand raised as well.
Oh, absolutely. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Pat. And
You didn't talk, I was gonna call on you, just so you know.
well, you said, does anybody else have comments? And I thought that maybe you were just gonna blow past me. Ari from his position would be, he's got much more experience in these kinds of things and from his side of the business. But I think a number of things I would say is I take no exception to the methodology, Dan. And for everybody in the room, and Pat, you put it well, it's kind of voodoo, like you're making a lot of guesses on a lot of things. And the unfortunate thing about a life cycle analysis is, unlike like a construction estimate with a project that's 2 or 3 years long, you're trying to guess on inflation and escalation to a midpoint of that project, a year and a half out or so. Here, you're trying to guess what's going to happen in 15 or 20 years and then apply that to something that you want to implement today. And there's the longer term that you go, the more the wider the variability of those outcomes could be. And I think this falls into that category, which is why I don't, again, don't take any exception to the methodology, but I have a philosophical struggle with these kinds of things because I think they want them to give them certainty. If it's cost certainty, you know, something of that sort by which they can make a decision by. And I don't think it's ever that clear. Couple other things I would point out. Having low electric rates because of RMLD is a great problem to have. And to Dan's point, in some respects in this analysis, it penalizes us. But if you look at, and I think this gets to Mark's point a little bit, while the context of the building and the recal process didn't specifically call out sustainability as a goal, the site selection was based on the ability to go net zero. The town of Reading has a net zero action plan. So the Commonwealth by 2050 is required to be net zero, and the town has adopted a net zero action plan that also calls on the town to make efforts to decrease carbon emissions, to increase the use of renewable energies. And I think it would basically be hypocritical of the town to build a building and not follow its own action plan relative to net zero and sustainability. I would also add that I think last year we became a green community, some sort of designation. I'm not sure exactly what goes into that, but I think by having that designation, we are eligible for, and this is a bad word to some people I know, but grants and other opportunities to get more money to implement more energy efficiency, and more opportunities to do more things to make our buildings more efficient, to lower our operating costs, to increase the lifespan of our buildings. So I think there's other aspects of this that aren't necessarily quantifiable. You can't put them in the Excel spreadsheet that Dan has and have them prove to you that the ROI is better or worse. But I would also argue that we're not developers. The town of Reading is not a developer. We're not looking for return on our investment. It's an indicator, it's a KPI that developers use to justify spending money because they'll make the money back. In the case of a municipal building with a 50-year or 75-year lifespan, we're not really looking to turn over the building or to recoup money on our investment. I think we have, the financial responsibility to spend the taxpayer money well and responsibly. And I think to the point that Mark made earlier, the reason that it was an alternate was that to include it in the base bid, we couldn't necessarily justify because we wanted to make sure we got through town meeting and got the money approved. Now that the money is approved and now that we have a value for it and it's within the budget, I don't know that ROI is something that I would even consider from a decision-making perspective. I would also look at from a construction perspective, and Mark touched on this as well, but in the course of construction, when you already have a construction site and an electrical contractor and the logistics are there to support construction, is an optimum time to do this install from a quality perspective, a continuity of service, and logistics. You try to do this afterwards and you're closing down the parking lots, you're potentially damaging the landscape and hardscape with mobilizing a crane. You've got laydown area that you have to have. You're impacting the constituents and the users of the facility. So I think there's value there that also doesn't get captured in the analysis. And then generally, I think, you look at alternate number one, did anybody do an ROI analysis of the extension of Range Road? Or is there a business case for the extension of Range Road? Or is it just an accessory to the project that makes sense and is reasonable and is useful for the town? So that's how I look at it. I'm in favor of it. We've got the money, and I think, and somebody on the town side, correct me if I'm wrong, the debt for the project is at the value that was presented to town meeting. And it's not as if the debt that the town takes is going to be decreased by some amount if we don't elect this alternate. We're still going to have the full debt that we got approved through town meeting. And if we don't spend it, then at some point that rolls back somehow into the town. So it's not like we're necessarily going to improve people's tax condition by not electing this alternate in the near term.
Didn't understand that. Drew. Why do you say that? If we don't spend money, then the tax rate goes down relative to the override. The money doesn't go back into the town coffers.
Jane,
This is
can
a
you
debt exclusion.
take a crack at clarifying that? Certainly can better than me.
Happy to, and I know Matt's on the call, so he can, correct me if I'm wrong. So when Sharon went out to borrow for this project, she did not borrow the full amount that was approved at town meeting. She based her borrowing, she's doing 2 tranches for these projects, multiple tranches for the projects. So the first tranche she borrowed, was based on cash flows that our OPM sent to her about what our spend will be over the duration of the first tranche. So we will need to borrow more money to finish the project, but that'll be based on updated cash flows once we award the project. So that'll be another exciting thing for you to do soon.
Happy.
Love that for us. So Greg is generally correct. The project was approved for the 27.9 million. We have borrowed a portion of that to fund the design and all of the work that's been done now and the construction start. And I don't know offhand, I don't remember offhand how much she borrowed in the first tranche for this project. And then at the end of the project, whatever we don't spend has to be held back, and it can only go to another project of a similar size with town meeting approval. So that's what Greg's getting at. But if with updated cash flows and with the savings, we may not need to borrow to that full amount. So that would reduce that overage that we keep in advance. And I'm sure there will still be some overage because that'll be unexpended contingency or something like that. But Mr. Stepler's correct. Whatever isn't spent is held, and it, just like we had money left over from the library project, it can only go to a project of similar size and consequence. So there's an official term there, but that's a Sharon question.
She's here too.
Sharon's here. Sharon, I see
Just took herself
Sharon.
off.
Let Sharon. listening to
Sharon's
it.
on.
Sharon's better than Jane.
I'm
And
on. I will say that we did borrow $20 million for this project, and we reduced our borrowing by the premiums that we received. We received about $2 million worth of premiums, so we borrowed somewhere in the vicinity of 17.2 or $17.8 million. And so that's going to get us through quite a while, and then we'll have better cash flows and a better idea how much we'll need for that second tranche. And so if we don't need the whole 27.9, I'm not going to borrow the whole 27.9. I would rescind the unused debt at town meeting, once we know what the project's going to cost. But if there is any leftover money, it does have to be transferred to another like-kind project. So we want to minimize how much we leave behind, but we also don't want to not borrow enough, so that it's a very touchy area, but the good thing is it will be closer to the end of the project and we'll be able to kind of have more accurate cash flows to work with because we've got all of our contracts in place. And right now the cash flow, was with estimated construction cost and all of that. When you bring that contractor on, we'll have more idea of what it's really going to cost. So I think that we'll be in a better position to minimize the excess.
Thank you. Greg, thank you. One question or one thought for you. I don't know if you can answer this, but just getting back to one of the ways I look at it, and and the solar is definitely different than the road. Like the road, you need to get from point A to point B. The only situation where we wouldn't do it is if we completely didn't have the money. Where this is a little more optional. I do agree there's more to it than just a financial analysis. But one question I have is a couple of things the financial analysis tell us. Like Dan pointed out that if you try and do solar in Reading, you get penalized because the RMLD rates are low and it's hard to make numbers work. But one of the other things it might be telling us is that what we're proposing is not a terribly efficient system and maybe isn't a great use of $270,000. We have a 100% electric building and all that electricity is coming from RMLD. That I don't know where RMLD gets their power. I assume that it's like the rest of the Northeast. And it's a composite that looks something like 50% of it comes from burning natural gas. Maybe some small single digit percentage, like 1 or 2% comes from burning fossil fuel. And the lion's share of what's left comes from renewables. So we're contributing to the grid, but it kind of comes to me like, what if we took this $270,000? I know this is just a thought experiment. It's not like we can really do this. What if we just gave that to RMLD and said, you know, make our portion of the grid, make it cleaner? Would you then be able to do twice as much as what we're doing here? And if that's the case, I know it's not an individual like quid pro quo and we can cut this back. And I get it. Like we reduce the cost of this project. Inevitably, it saves the town of Reading money somewhere. Because inevitably it goes to a project that we're gonna do anyway. And there's money left over from this to do it. And we should always be fiscally responsible. And it's not like we can just take 270 out of this budget and give it to RMLD. But just as a thought experiment, is that analysis kind of telling us that it's an inefficient building for solar and not a great use? Or is it just the fact that RMLD energy is so cheap that the numbers never work? Which I've explored putting solar on my house on multiple occasions and the numbers never work. And I'll probably eventually just do it and tell myself I'm writing a check to the environment. Which I will be happy doing. But I've literally done that like 3 times and it just gets to a point where the numbers don't make sense. So do you have any thoughts on that? Just kind of looking at it from that perspective?
Well, I think in some respects, Dan answered that question, right? He's, because RMLD's rates are so cheap, the analysis is always going to be skewed. And I think, if you look at anywhere where National Grid or Eversource is providing you electrons, then you'd want to do this in a heartbeat because their rates are much higher. To your second question, I think the other part of looking at the Commonwealth's net zero plan also requires, and this is also in the town's net zero action plan, RMLD under the same legislation is required to buy increasing amounts of their electricity from renewable sources leading up to 2050. So in essence, to answer your question, I think by us spending this $270,000 or $210,000 with a $60,000 grant from RMLD, you in effect are paying for their solar capacity towards their contribution towards renewable energy purchase to satisfy their requirements of buying non-carbon sources.
So as the state moves more and more towards renewable resources for electricity, then by definition, providing solar panels on people's houses becomes less and less important in terms of energy conservation. In other words, if the state is buying renewable source energy, then individual people don't need to.
I think
Nancy?
that the way they're going to buy renewable energy is by people putting solar on the roofs. So at some point, we need that real estate in order to support it. So this is, I think Greg is right, that putting it on this roof is giving not only the town, but RMLD the benefit of having additional solar that's at its use. So even though it's benefiting us, it's also benefiting them. And everybody that puts solar on the roofs, eventually, the state of Massachusetts, that would be what will happen, is the way we get to net zero. Because there isn't any other way to do it, unless you have fields of.
No.
Well, how would you do it?
Wind power and nuclear.
Sure, but, well, nuclear would be probably better,
Yes, it's better.
but getting that through all this.
I mean, this is beyond our discussion. Discussion is whether we should, in my view, question is whether we can justifiably tell people that your taxes are going to go up even a little bit more than they otherwise would by putting something on this building which doesn't have an efficient payment. You know, I thought we decided before that kind of numbers, kind of payback period is going to be 10 years was okay. I think your figure was 15, mine was 10. Nobody was talking 23 years.
The two of us were talking, no one else was talking.
Okay.
I think I chimed in as well.
And we
Something
have to
else,
be
something,
fiscally responsible to the taxpayers of the town. I can't see it. Right.
yeah,
Greg?
something else I would add is that this building is all electric, but not all of the town's buildings are all electric, and a number of the town's buildings burn gas. So one way to offset gas consumption at an existing building without going through a major refit and renovation to electrify an existing building with existing gas appliances is to offset that gas consumption with a solar array on another building. So again, that's something that I don't know how you quantify, because I don't know within the Commonwealth's requirements for net zero where that washes out, how you make that calculus. But from the town's perspective, and going back to the discussion about all the other benefits of putting a solar array on the roof, like actually following the town's net zero action plan, and not being a hypocrite by building a building without a solar array on the roof. I think there's also other applications to the town writ large relative to offsetting or reducing carbon consumption and emissions in the other facilities.
Does anyone else have anything else? One thing I will add is the value based purely on the bids. All the bidders carried the same electrical contractor. And they all added a little bit of money. J&J seems to be strategically kind of throwing it in almost at cost. The electrical contractor's alternate is $268,000. Also, if you flip over to the filed sub bids, Peter, if you can pop over there. You can see, now I want to see the actual electrical filed sub bidders.
Oh,
You got it there somewhere.
do I? Oh, well, I do. I'm sorry. You're right. So many sheets I have on this.
You got a lot going on.
Here we go.
You got that.
Scrolling down.
So
Let me zoom in a little bit. So I'll highlight, Griffin Electric is the low. Okay.
So there's a little bit of an anomaly in those bids, in that Jupiter Electric had an extremely aggressive number on the solar, but all the other numbers are in line with Griffin or higher. Two of them are, at 300. So that price seems to be a fair value, if you will. If you're just talking, what do we, what's the value And I will say, get back to the commentary about doing it later. Like, we get to the end of this job and decide to do it. And I've been there on the other side of it, where at the end of the job, it's like, hey, we're gonna add solar. It's, it will cost more. But that looks to me like, it's not like we're paying a premium through this bidding process. Just 2 cents on a quick bid analysis. And Jupiter's kind of got a little bit of an aggressive number there. But other than that, all those bids are very close, and Griffin's towards the lower end of it. So I will accept a motion unless anyone has further discussion on this, and you will have another opportunity to talk. I'll accept a motion, to accept or to not accept the alternate.
Move to approve alternate number 2, add photovoltaic system.
Second.
Does anyone have any further discussion? Ron?
Just one thing about the break-even analysis, that was a nominal break-even analysis, not a real one. So it wasn't taking into consideration the discount factor. Like, you're not going to see all of the savings up front. You're going to make an initial investment up front, but the time value of money is going to decrease over time. So the actual payback is going to be a little bit longer. The nominal payback might be 20 years, but the real payback is going to be longer. And again, that's not necessarily a reason to vote against it. There are externalities like, reducing carbon emissions. It's all of us. And there's also the possibility of competing. But the question I have is, getting back to additional taxes. So this is coming from money that's already been budgeted, but not necessarily funded yet through tranches. So
It's appropriate.
yeah.
All the money's appropriate.
So is that true that it would cost? It's not going to result in additional taxes. It would just be whether this money would be appropriated for this project or similar project.
That's a Sharon question. I would defer to Sharon.
Even appropriate money.
I didn't hear the question, I'm sorry.
Repeat it again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So this money has already been appropriated. So the question is, like, it came up whether or not taxpayers would actually be paying more taxes by adding this alternative. But this money's already been appropriated, so it really is a question of whether or not this money is used for this project or for some other suitable project. Is that correct, or do I misunderstand that?
Not sure I understand what you're referring to. I'm
Sure.
sorry.
So the alternative for $270,000,
Yep.
that's going to be paid for from the recal budget if we vote yes.
Mhm.
Alternatively, that if we didn't do that, that money would be turned over. There would be extra money we would have from the recal budget that we would turn over to the town to use for other suitable projects. So the question is whether or not it's used for recal or for some other project, but it's not like taxpayers are going to have to pay more taxes for it.
I guess said differently too, is what was the value approved by town meeting for this project?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
It was the 27.9 million, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
So whatever we spend on the project, because it is excluded debt, will affect people's tax bills, because that, the debt service, whatever we're borrowing is going to be added to your tax bill, your proportionate share. So obviously anything you add to the project will affect the tax bill. But I'm not sure where it's excluded debt, that we could move it anywhere but the recal project. That was a ballot vote, so I think the only place you could use it is for recal and then rescind any unused portion.
I can take one shot at it also. So the expectation of the town of Reading through town meeting and through the voters was that we would spend $27.9 million. The estimates of impact on tax are based on that spending of $27.9 million.
Right, so if we approve this their taxes aren't going to be higher than that expectation.
Correct.
That's what I'm watching.
No, yeah, it's not going to be higher than that. I mean, in fact, if you save money on the project, it'll be lower than what the projections were.
That's what I was getting.
But the town will not borrow more money than it needs, this project.
Or any project, right?
Yeah, so if we add to $270,000, it will increase taxes that you pay.
I think that's not a fair way to position it. I think anything we spend impacts tax. The town, the voters of the town meeting have an expectation that this project will cost $27.9 million. And we have a responsibility, and the way we did this whole process was to do everything we possibly could to get under that number. That's all true and fair. We also said, hey, there's some things in here that are alternates, so that if we are able to come in under that approved number, those would be possibilities to consider. But not going above the number that was approved by the taxpayers of the community and town meeting. And that's where we are. And now the discussion we had on alternate one was, yes, that's something that this group voted to support. And now we're looking at alternate two in the same way. If we do both of them, this, lines 24, I guess, would be the one. So on a 21.9 million approved budget, we're at 19.357.
I think for purposes of decisions we make, we should operate under the assumption that we should spend things that provide value for the town, and we have a fiscal responsibility to do so. And we should just operate under the assumption that if we're under budget, one way or the other, we're saving the town or the taxpayer dollars. Whether you can correlate it directly to a physical dollar on someone's tax bill or not, eventually it gets there. Because even if it carries forward to offset the costs of some other project that is necessary, that would cost less and have a lower increase in taxes, but one way or the other. But we should always operate under the assumption that if we don't spend money, we shouldn't spend money that we don't have to just because we have it. And if we do come in under budget, which we hope we're headed in that direction, that it's good for the town. It's good for the taxpayers.
Can I,
Where we were, do we have a motion and and do we have a
before we get
second?
there,
Yes,
can
I
I
second.
ask a question, Pat?
Yes,
Just
Joel,
procedurally,
Chuck.
if we go back to that chart with the subcontractors' bids, you haven't accepted the alternate one or alternate two yet formally. I mean, you did one, but alternate two hasn't. If you look at the subcontractors' bids, Griffin would not be the low with the base and the alternate if you accept alternate two. And isn't the rule that you low bid is the base plus the alternate, not the base? So add 220 and 268, those two numbers, that's higher than the next guy down, right? So procedurally, if you accepted alternate two, don't you drop down to the low bidder, which would be the second guy?
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think the general contractor has the opportunity to list any one of those bidders, and they chose to list the low bidder.
Okay.
The low bidder based on the base bid price. And
Okay.
it wouldn't be uncommon. Like, if I'm the general contractor, I might have carried Jupiter because I know I'm coming in under budget and I'm gonna roll the dice that this committee is gonna accept both alternates.
Okay.
But I don't think it just automatically floats to that lower bidder.
All right.
I think there could be an opportunity for us to go to that general bidder and ask them to change their filed sub bidder, which I think we have the right to do. I think we also might invite a bid protest from Mr. Griffin.
Yeah, I was afraid of that either way. That's why I was asking the question.
I
I think you're right. If the GC accepts that, then that overrules the, okay, sorry, I asked the question.
I think so, but again, that would definitely be a not a Pat Tompkins, that would be a town council, like question and answer. But I think, but, okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any other discussion on the alternate? And the motion was to accept the alternate. Okay, no other discussion. I'm gonna go to a vote. John Coop,
No.
Mark Doxer,
Yes.
Kirk McCormick,
Yes.
Ron Powell,
Yes.
Greg Stepler,
Yes.
Nancy Toomey,
Yes.
Pat Tompkins, yes. Motion passes. Woo. I didn't miss anyone, did I? Okay.
I'm sorry?
One more vote. Based on the general contractor. Awards, I don't know, Peter, if you have anything to
Don't
say.
keep going. You got it.
So I think what we need to vote to award, and we're voting that they're the lowest responsible and eligible bidder. Based on the math, regardless of the alternate, they're the lowest bidder. There's no question about that. I think the question of eligibility, they have a certificate of eligibility that Peter has confirmed is valid, up to date. It's well in excess of the single project. There's also an aggregate work limit amount there that's well under. And then as far as them being a responsible contractor, they were pre-qualified. Peter has done an update of checking their DCAM file. And I would think generally, unless there's some anomaly that we found since we pre-qualified them, we've effectively determined them to be a responsible contractor when we pre-qualified them. They are two separate and distinct things, but I think it's pretty straightforward. And if anyone wants to make a motion to accept the low bid, I'll entertain that on the floor.
Motion to the, how would you say, road the responsible.
Peter, you want responsible and eligible?
Yes,
Lowest responsible
responsible and eligible. Correct.
Yeah,
bid of J&J contractors.
JJ.
A second? Any discussion? We'll go to the vote. John Coop,
Yes.
Mark Doxer,
Yes.
Kirk McCormick,
Yes.
Ron Powell,
Yes.
Greg Stepler,
Yes.
Nancy Toomey,
Yes.
Pat Tompkins, yes. Motion passes.
Sure. Can I ask, Ron, you second?
Ron seconded.
Thank you. Just making notes. Thank you.
Just click on that one. So moving on to, well, actually, before we move on, congratulations.
Yeah.
A huge milestone. And a huge shout out to BH plus A and TTH. You guys have been great partners to us since day one. And done a great job. A lot of work to go, a lot of work left to go, but obviously we're in a fantastic position. And
All the emojis.
so
I'm loving the emojis.
can we cancel the emojis? But thank you all for your support, getting us to where we are. It's a huge milestone. We're in a great position. And looking forward to the next stages. It gets even more fun and exciting from there.
Now that fun really begins.
Okay, on to the next. Turn it back over to you, Peter.
Thank you. Just moving down the list, other updates, with respect to procurement, now that construction will get underway, we talked last session about procuring materials, testing and inspectional services. That package, in cooperation with the town's procurement, advertisement went out. We have received, as of today, which was the bid day, the bids came in, well, proposals, I should call them. As of today, they came in at 12 noon, and we solicited and received We solicited 10 firms. We have, what we have here, 6 firms that submitted proposals. So it's a lengthy process to go through all the costs. We'll have a recommendation for the next meeting, which should be fine in time for start of construction. So with respect to procurement and materials inspections, that's where we are. Which is great. So commissioning services, we're gonna get underway with that in February, March. We'll come back with some more proposals on that, but I'll also speak with the design team, making sure we have all the things we think we need and the building committee. But right now, I think we're talking about certainly commissioning the building systems, the building envelope to some extent, although a lot of that work is already kind of in place, but we'll see what we need to do there. And then, of course, we'll have some additional activities from the commissioning agent to provide some oversight of the training of the owner's facilities department when the building gets turned over for commissioning and operational needs. So that's coming up in February, March, and inspectional service proposals will be the next month in March as well. The other thing I will quickly say, and I have it up here on the report, I meant to issue it last night or this morning, but I got behind. But the accessibility report, we all know we had KMA Architects do an ADA accessibility peer review. They did submit a report. That report was provided to the design team BH+A. I'll show you right here. Here is a memo from BH+A's office. They have taken an extensive look at the report from KMA Architects. This will go out tomorrow morning to everybody. They have provided response comments. And here's just a quick sample of some of the, oops, I'll do it right here. So here's landscape and civil. These are the report from KMA in the black writing and the graphics. And then BH+A's subconsultant Activitas has responded. And certainly the BH+A team is on the call. They can certainly jump in if they so choose. But this is a summary of what they've come back with themselves in-house architects, designers, along with the civil site consultants as well. And this is the report. You'll see all this. And I'll stop there if BH+A wants to add anything. But this will also go out to the full committee and the building commissioner as well.
Thank you. Did Dan or Joel, did you have anything else to add to that?
No.
Okay.
Can I ask before you move on, Peter, how big is, where was that list of questions? Is that 3 or 4 pages? Is it 10
How many pages? Let me scroll down. What do you got here? Hold on a second.
Oh, set of comments was 18 pages. There was-
18, oh, thank you,
there was
Colin.
51 items.
Yeah,
And is there anything in there? So there are comments to the side. Are any of those impacting the plan? Or are they more, oh yeah, that's already taken care of?
The vast majority of these were clarifications to graphics. There was no change to design. For example, if a change required shifting a wall 3 or 4 inches, that's what we did.
Okay, so there could be some adjustments that are part of that, so we'll have a chance to take a look at it.
Colin, if any of the comments resulted in a change, let's say just moving a door, was that captured in an addenda through the bidding process?
This, because of the time that this was reviewed, it will be picked up in a bulletin.
Okay,
We don't expect much of any change to cost. Scope was not really affected in any way, but we will be clouding and capturing those changes regardless, so that they make their way into the conform set that the GC gets.
okay,
yeah, so here's, grab bar heights, and then there was a question, and then there was a response. So as I think as Colin mentioned, some of them are dimensional graphics.
that makes sense.
So it was a good report. I think it was, from where I sit at the table here, I thought that was a good exercise to spend some money to have an individual peer review performed on this accessibility for the project. I think, and KMA's, that's pretty much what they do. They're a specialist in that arena. So I think it was,
Yeah, sorry, is there commentary or is it all just kind of a punch list?
it's sort of a punch list, I guess, but there's gonna be a bulletin that'll provide additional instructions, or I'll call it, they call it an ASI, additional supplemental instructions to the contractor for if the bid documents had a certain dimension on it, well, this is what you need to do, and there are usually no cost changes. Although, could there be a cost change?
Yep.
We'll see what the contractor comes back with, and we'll discuss it with them at the time.
Okay, and does any of this relate to compliance to code or to other things? And in this report, is that anything that they're, I guess they wouldn't be certifying it, but are they commenting on? Who's gonna be the one that does in fact certify that it accomplishes all these things before it gets to the building inspector to do the same?
I'm gonna defer to the
Yeah,
VHSA team.
Architect
Joel.
has to issue an affidavit at the end of the job.
Okay.
On that.
So it's you folks, okay.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so that's pretty much number 6 on the updates. I'll turn it over. I'm done with updates from the OPM side. BH plus A, I know we've talked a little bit. Anything, Joel, Colin, Dan?
The only item that's sort of open and not quite ready to start yet is the furniture procurement process, and that you don't want to get too far ahead of that because if you order it early, you have to store it, and that gets to be rather expensive. So we'll start that in a couple months and get that bid out at the right time so that it works with the construction schedule once we get the contractor on board. But that's the only item that's outstanding.
Right. Yeah, we do have it on the schedule, and we'll track that as well.
Yep.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
through you to the architect, will there be an opportunity for this group to look at, or whoever wants to look at the furnishings? We're doing something similar in Killam. I'm just wondering,
Yeah,
make some of those decisions. You
Yep.
know, yep,
Yep.
okay.
yeah.
I
And so,
would think we would develop a working group when the time comes.
I know there's some folks on the Council on Aging who would like to be part of that process.
yeah,
And recreation too.
We can handle that, right, Joel?
yeah,
And so I guess, give us some guidance on, as we get closer, give us some guidance heading into a meeting like, Pat, you're gonna have to volunteer some people at this meeting.
okay.
I think we'll have plenty of volunteers. Okay.
An opportunity for the owner, building committee, to offer any new business or updates? Is there anything?
I have nothing.
We did have previous discussion about what to call this building, and we decided to postpone it until we have a project, and now we have a project. I don't know whether it's this committee that decides what the name of this building's gonna be, somebody else.
I think that has been decided, it's the Reading Center for Active Living.
I don't think that's been decided.
I think it might have been more what exactly the sign said.
Well, the Council on Aging were very strong in saying they wanted senior center.
That that's not gonna happen on the outside of the building. Yeah,
Don't
this has
forget
been, this has been discussed at
don't
multiple
forget
meetings.
what went to the voters. The description of the building that went to the voters was senior center / center of active living.
Right, and Jane can speak to this more better than I can, and I know that has been floating around a lot lately, but the intention was on the ballot to put it like that for people to know that this building was no longer going to exist. That this building and the community would be together in this one building, Reading Center for Active Living. So that was why it was like that on the ballot, not to say that it was a senior center and a community center. So Reading Center for Active Living, it's a building for all ages, all abilities, with dedicated senior space. And I think that's been the message all along. But it keeps coming up a lot.
It keeps coming up.
Yes, and Jane's coming back down too, so maybe she can add some color.
What I do?
So
Name
the,
the building.
the name of the building,
I don't.
the seniors want it to
feel
be
like
the
that's a
senior center.
Permanent building or
That's
retail
not,
building.
Yeah.
be our job. It's not-
I don't believe that that is our job. The name
I think,
the name, the Reading Center for Active Living. As far as we know,
I know the Council on Aging will feel very strongly that senior center should appear in the building someday. That's what they expressed.
I think we discussed putting something in the building that created that collaborative element of all of the ages, but on the outside of the building, it was discussed that it would say Recal Reading Center for Active Living. And that's how it was presented at CPDC for the signage.
Right. Signage.
and the town staff has been going through operations and all of these things, close coordination with the council on aging. So I would defer to town staff on the name of the building. Well, for, but the PVC is not naming the building. But I think everybody agrees.
Yeah, that's not on the agenda tonight, so we are not prepared to discuss it.
Right.
So I don't think we have any other sort of owner or operational updates, and we can move to item 7, the owner contractor agreement, which is defined in the specifications. So it's not like something that needs to be created. It's not something that's negotiated. It's basically just fill in the blanks and send it out.
Just letting everybody know that's coming up next. We'll get a notice of award, notice to proceed, and then they get the contract in place. Back to back with the start date.
And Matt and Jane, you don't need anything further from us to act to move forward with that, right?
I don't believe so. I think.
No, I don't think so
Yeah.
either. No, go ahead.
I don't believe we need anything else. We're ready. We'll work as staff and with the OPM and the contractor, the designer to get the contract signed. Once that's signed, then everybody will figure out the notice to proceed.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be done internally. Yes.
Quick housekeeping question if I could. Sure. I'm not sure if our vote on the general contractor included their name and some information, but not a dollar amount. We need it. We need to make sure that the dollar amount is there. I'm not sure of the answer to that. Just wondering.
Can't hurt.
I was gonna put it in, excuse me. I was gonna put in the motion was to approve J&J contractors at this number right here on the screen.
That's exactly what I said.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. That's exactly what I heard.
Where's that approved stamp?
Yeah. Okay. So, okay.
So I don't think there's anything to cover in items 8, 9, and 10. And we can move on to project invoices. Peter, if you want to present those.
Sure, I can certainly say to the committee here, with respect to items 1, 3, 4, and 5. As the OPM, we reviewed them, and we make a recommendation for the committee's consideration to approve them. I will, not comment on number 2.
You got a motion?
Which one I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, move to accept, to accept EH plus A's invoice number 27854 for $60,000.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, go to the vote. John Coop,
Yes.
Mark Doxer,
Yes.
Kirk McCormick,
Yes.
Ron Powell. Yes. Greg Stepler,
Yes.
Nancy Toomey,
Yes.
Pat Tompkins, yes. Motion passes.
Move to accept invoice number PJIN 004637 from Turner and Townsend Hearing for $24,377.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, go to the vote. John Coop,
Yes.
Mark Doxer,
Yes.
Kirk McCormick,
Yes.
Ron Powell,
Yes.
Greg Stepler,
Yes.
Nancy Toomy,
Yes.
Pat Tompkins, yes. Motion passes.
To accept, invoice number 4844 from consultants for $1,050.
Second, sorry, I got the wrong number. Second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, go to the vote. John Coop.
Yes.
Mark Doxer.
Yes.
Kirk McCormick.
Yes.
Ron Powell.
Yes.
Greg Stepler.
Yes.
Nancy Toomey.
Yes.
Pat Tompkins, yes.
Move to accept invoice number 17481 from K&A Architects for $4,700.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, John Coop.
Yes.
Mark Doxer.
Yes.
Kirk McCormick.
Yes.
Ron Powell.
Yes.
Greg Stepler.
Yes.
Nancy Toomey.
Yes.
Pat Tompkins, yes.
Move to accept invoice number 260063 from Times Chronicle for advertising in the amount of $305.50.
Any discussion? Seeing none, John Coop.
Yes.
Mark Doxer.
Yes.
Kirk McCormick.
Yes.
Ron Powell.
Yes.
Greg Stepler.
Yes.
Nancy Toomey.
Yes.
Pat Tompkins, yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on, I don't think we have any other business not reasonably anticipated within 48 hours of the meeting. None from me. We have upcoming meetings. March 4, April 1, May 6.
All right, so April 1st does, present a conflict for me. It actually is the first night of Passover. There might be flexibility to adjust to different night.
Fine with me. Absolutely. We can make that adjustment. You want to take a sort of a straw poll right now?
Sure. Do I have a calendar?
April, I mean, would it make sense to just bump to April 8th?
Works for me.
Oh, you know what? I don't want to do that. I have a outstanding meeting the second Wednesday. I managed to squeeze in tonight. Pretty impressive.
15.
Could bump out to the 15th. Creating a,
They're gonna be back.
what's that? It might be a big spread. Why don't we tentatively pencil that in and talk about it next month? See what we have sort of on the docket and what's happening. Can move it up, or we can move it a day, or I can deal with my conflict on the 8th. We decide to go the 8th. Maybe pencil it in for the 15th and revisit next month to make a final decision, but just definitely move it. To accommodate that. Okay,
I may or may not be here on March 4th. I'm scheduled to take some time off.
What?
okay.
How dare you? I knew you were
But that's to be determined.
Okay.
We're forcing Peter to take time off.
Okay, Mark.
We'll
Deserve
have
it.
Mark come back in. I'm sure he can handle it. I'm sure
And-
he needs. I want
And
to mess with
he's
you.
So I can log in
back.
remotely.
It was Tuesday, the 31st of March. Just by one day, is that a possibility?
Oh,
That looks good to me. I think we have a tentative Killam meeting Monday.
Yeah.
Just be back to back, the 30th and the 31st, which is fine with me. I'm always a fan of jam them in.
Is it not likely that we would want to meet contractors, personnel? Maybe not a meeting like this, but some meetings.
I think that that's a great idea, and maybe we think about inviting the contractor to next month's meeting. What do you think of that, Peter?
We're a little shadow.
I know, I know you were.
Construction.
John suggested that we have an opportunity to meet the contractor, and I said that might be a good idea to invite them to next month's meeting.
Okay.
But you won't be
Yeah, we
there.
can do a meet and greet of them. I don't think you're gonna see them on a regular monthly basis.
No.
But I think it's, hi, this is us, and so on. Sure, I'll make that notice to them.
Great idea. Okay, that I'll accept the.
Motion to adjourn.
All
There you go, second.
right. Don Coon,
Yes.
Mark Doxer.
Yes.
Kirk McCormick,
Yes.
Ron Powell,
Yes.
Greg Stepler,
Yes.
Nancy Toomey,
Yes.
Pat Tompkins, yes. Thank you all. Congratulations. Thank you all.
Thank-